Morning, hello and welcome to Mobility Magic on a Monday. Hello if you're just joining us for the first time, if you're joining us on the replay, hello to you as well. And hello to any new members which are checking out this live feed of Mobility Magic. Hello, welcome. We'll just give it a second just for a few people to filter in. Today we are going to do a little bit of work on the neck and around the shoulder, and we're going to do some work on stretching and releasing the chest, a little bit of T-spine mobility as well. So a combination of different things for the upper body, but if you join us for the first time, this is a half-hour session designed to help mobilize your upper body today. So welcome, hello, thanks for joining us. And as usual, I would say if you have any feedback about this session and things you would like us to cover in this session, please leave your feedback in the comments at the end of the video when I repost it for you to rewatch in the video. So I'm just going to turn the comments off. Really great to see everyone that's joining, if you're a regular, if you're joining us for the first time. So first thing we're going to do today is we're going to do a little bit of a check-in, see how our shoulders feel. So again, I said that we're going to work on our neck and our chest, so we're going to start with that first. We'll also do a little bit of nerve flossing, etc. So first thing we're going to do is do a check-in. So we're going to check in with our shoulders first, and that can just take the shape of a little bit of a shoulder roll. So I'm just rolling my shoulders back, biasing a high position towards my ears, and then behind me and down. This is just to see what is going on, what feels funky, what feels good. We can also bring our arms across our body. This is a good way just to see if it's actually our chest. So if you're feeling limitations in this kind of top corner, as we kind of bring our arms round our shoulders, just see how that feels, see how our chest responds to that. And if there's any resistance as you bring your arm back, could be something else, but let's just say it's our chest today. And then the last thing we want to do is just kind of see how our chest feels as we bring our arms back. Do we have the ability to bring our arms up? This will also form part of our chest stretch later. So, and then we're also going to check in with the neck as well. So we're going to do some rotations. So as I said, it's going to be kind of neck and chest, and sometimes this kind of neck rotation, just moving it round and around, and then just changing kind of head and neck position is enough for us to feel a slight change. Bear with me while I just close the window there, and you can feel enough of a change in the neck area. So a little bit of resistance there. So let's just start by pinning the tissue down the neck. We're going to start with a chest stretch. So I'm going to place my hand on my collarbone. Should just feel it pop out just below your neck here, and we're going to pin the tissue down. So it's just a bit of a light stretch to begin with. So we're going to tilt our head slightly, nose pointing forwards, about 45 degrees slant on the head, and we're going to paint a square with our chin. So we're just drawing that box up, across, down, and back in. So we're just drawing that square just to feel a light stretch. And if you feel that there's a slight release, you can just reapply that pressure. Again, drawing the square with your nose is what we're trying to do. So up, across, feel a little bit of tension build as you draw that square. Down, in, up, across, down, and in. Now roll your shoulder just a little bit, just to see if that's helped release a little bit of the chest on this side as well, because you could feel the restriction come this way. And we're going to do a second pass now. When we do this time, a couple of things you can do. You can actually open your jaw just to help release a little bit of tension through this area, and you might also feel it in your ear as well. So as we tilt our head, we're just applying a little bit of downward pressure into the tissue, moving it away from our chin. So this is just resistance down and away. We're lifting our chin up to the ceiling, across, down, back again. Let's open our jaw. Feel the stretch here, down and back in. And let's just move our neck a little bit, see how that feels. Give it a quick roll, see if that's cleared up any of the issues in this area for you. And let's just do a check on the other side, see if that feels a little bit different. I feel a little bit of release here. So let's do the other side. We're going to pin the tissue down, one hand on top of the other. We're going to tilt our head away again. You may even feel that this side or one of the sides feels tighter. We're tilting our nose, it's going to point forwards, it's about 45 degrees. So We're going to draw that square with our chin or our nose, coming down, across, up, across, down, across. And we're just going to keep going. And if you need to reapply pressure, just keep that tissue down, then do so. And on this pass, we're just going to open our jaw a little bit. We can move it a little bit around as we draw that square. So again, just give it a roll out. If you want to do another pass, you can. Another way of doing this one is you can just do a little bit of a squeeze on the muscle that kind of pops out right here. And you can do the same thing, or you can just literally lift your chin up to the ceiling as well. So a little bit of nerve flossing next. We're going to come into a pec stretch, but first I thought we'd address the nerves before we start annoying them with foam rolling and lacrosse ball work. So first one we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a lean away. We're going to reach our head away, and we're going to bring our hand down to the floor. So I'll step across the screen so you can see it. So lean our head away slightly, and then we're going to bring our hand down. So lean away and bring our hand down. You should feel the nerve start to mobilize in your arm. You should feel it maybe in the bicep too, as you lean your head away. You should feel a little bit of a sensation just coming along your arm, and it should start to wear off as you start to do this movement or bring your hand towards you and away. You should feel that arm feels a little bit better. Second way we can do it, we can actually go the other way with the hand up, away, back, and away. So you can do it in this kind of fluid movement, starting off with the hand away and towards you, and then turn your palm up, do the same thing. And the more range you get with your fingers going down, the better. And then we can also bring the arm towards our forehead, like you're doing a salute, or if you have the range, you can bring it back so you've got like a little spyglass monocle type thing. So let's switch sides. So again, the three moves you're going to do are going to be the hand away, hand down, head away. That's the first one. So whichever side that you feel that there's tension there is the side you probably want to spend the most time on. This can also be helped once we get a little bit more into some wrist work, which we'll do a little bit later. And if you feel more tension on one side, often releasing kind of musculature that feeds up, so the forearm, the pec, and the shoulder can help this. So hands up to the ceiling now, and do the same thing. Head goes away, towards, away, towards, and we're just tying in that hand as well. So as my head comes this way, I'm pushing my hand towards the floor, my fingertips are all pointing down, turn my head away, etc. And then the last one is saluting. We're just going to bring it away, salute. You can also imagine you're throwing a dart if that's kind of a better image for you, or you can try and get this spy eye thing coming on, or we're just trying to thread that position. So you can do this a few times. So first position would be hand away, head away. Hand up would be the second one, same positions, hand down. Third one would be that throwing a dart, trying to get that arm to, all those nerves to glide. So there's three moves that you can quickly do just to help floss those nerves around the arm and shoulder. We're now going to switch to a floor position. Going to grab our foam roller. You'll loosen up that T-spine a little bit, which will help you with that shoulder and chest. So we've done a couple of things here. We've done a little bit of neck work. We're now moving on to some T-spine after doing some nerve flossing. And we're going to start on our back with the foam roller around the bottom of our, the top of our rib cage towards the shoulder. I'm going to move downwards. So we're at the top, just underneath our shoulder blades. We're going to cross up our arms if you need to, or you can support your head in this position if that's better for you. But I would suggest that you tuck your chin slightly just to save your neck. If you're doing it the way that I'm doing it, that's crossing our arms. Just make sure you're tucking your chin, as I said. And we're just doing small movements. So we're going to roll down just a little bit, a segment at a time, if you're feeling clicks and pops, fingers crossed they are positive and they're helping you, not hindering you. But all we're doing is we're just moving vertebrae to vertebrae down one at a time towards the bottom of the rib cage. So you want to finish up around the bottom of the rib cage, no lower. So if the femoral lines up roughly with the rib cage at the bottom of the rib cage, you're okay. If you're going to be lower, then we're probably treading into lumbar spine, more towards where we don't want to mobilize, because we don't want any mobility, really too much mobility in our lumbar spine. We just want to keep it in our T-spine. We're just rocking from side to side now, so we're keeping our weight pressed up. You can do this by lifting your hips slightly, just lifting off the ground, pressing the femoral out. And again, if you need to support your head, you can bring your arms behind your head. We're doing the same thing, so just bring your elbows together if you need to. We're rocking from side to side. Now, the reason this helps is because if you can imagine, if we're tucking our shoulder blade or pulling our shoulder blades forward, it gives more surface area to that foam roller to kind of hit. And after all, we're just trying to help create some space in between those vertebrae, get that tissue kind of moving around as well. Now, before you do any long rolls, which some people like with this, make sure that you go slow. You mobilize each vertebrae first. So, second position for this, because we're working on our chest and pec, we're going to get into a little bit of side work we've done before, just trying to get that shoulder opened up before we switch right over. We're laying on the side first. You can use your top side leg to modulate the pressure. So this is probably about 7 out of 10. You can also use your top arm to help steer where the stretch is going down into. So again, if you're using this top arm as a rudder, it's going to direct the force downwards because you're shifting the pressure. We're just going to roll up and down, just away from the armpit and then towards. And again, if you just use this top leg to help push, steer you into that position. So arm nice and tall, stretching out towards that back wall. I'm just touching it right here. And we're just helping to release anything which could be around that teres major minor, that serratus anterior, that is around the rib cage, that can feel a little bit tight, that can also feed into that pec area as well. So let's roll onto our stomach once you feel good to go. Now if you're on watching this back on the stream, watching the replay of the video, you may want to pause here, you may want to spend some time hitting this area so it feels quite tender, and also just make sure you breathe as well. So a big thing with this is just making sure you take some nice deep breaths. Once we've switched into position, I'm just going to turn around so you can see, we are getting this foam roller at a slight diagonal to our arm, and we're just going to make sure that we're turning our body slightly away from the foam roller. So this is going to create a bit of tension, a bit of a pull across the pec as we turn away, and we're just moving that foam roller backwards and forwards slightly. And you can even just leave it there. If you have a little bit of downward pressure and you're resting into the area without forcing the shoulder into an awkward position, and you just feel it across the chest, that can often be good enough as well. So you don't really need the roll, but it can sometimes help. So we're just stretching, and if you apply a little bit of downward pressure with this arm, so the arm that you're stretching, that can also help to create some tension or release some tension across that pec as well. So let's switch sides, and let's go through this one more time, just so it's a little bit clearer, you can understand where I'm coming from with this. So we've done our T-spine, we're switching to stretching, or at least mobilizing a little bit of the rib cage into the shoulder, into the chest. So we've done our kind of teres major and minor, so that's in the top corner near the shoulder, and that can sometimes get stuck when it comes to the arm, shoulder, chest, and we're just applying a little bit of down pressure. You can use that arm to help modulate the pressure by just kind of shifting backwards and forwards. You can also lift the hip with this leg as well. And again, if you want to spend more time on it, before you skip ahead, if you're watching on the live stream, feel free to spend as much time as you need. These are just, after all, ideas for your mobilizing. And if you're following along, just go directly into each piece as we go. But if you're watching on the live stream, obviously you can pause it as well. So again, I am just steering the stretch, just trying to hit where the areas that feel tight. I can then also roll up a little bit if I need to into that armpit or away, just to help loosen up that teres major, teres minor, that's in the top corner. And also the serratus anterior, that's like the feather-like branches that come between the ribs a little bit. And we're just trying to turn our body a little bit. And now we're just going to change the stretch just by changing the angle of the foam roller. So now the foam roller is pointed on a slight angle. I've now got my stomach towards the floor more, and my arm, that's the arm that's stretching, which is my right arm in this circumstance, is going to stretch as far away from the foam roller as I can, and I'm going to use this bottom hand to push and change the direction of my body as I move. So I'm just rolling a little bit, just to find that sweet spot, and once I find a little bit of a stretch, I'm going to reach that hand, that right hand that's on the floor, the one I'm stretching, away as far as I can, and then I can also turn my chest away from the foam roller. So I can turn my chest slightly away, and you should feel a slight stretch. Again, remembering to breathe. Turn my chest. I can also change the angle, so I can creep my hand, this is another modification, slightly away. You may even feel a little bit of release elsewhere in the forearm, in the shoulder, and the chest as you change the direction. So this is kind of this fan-like position that we're going for here. Just changing as we have downward pressure into the shoulder. I'm just changing the position. So again, should be slightly diagonal like this. Arms away. I can also move the arm as well just to change that position. And then do a little bit of a check-in. So you've done a little bit of mobilization and downward pressure with the T-spine, with the chest opener, and you can also modulate it by moving the arm as well. Now, another thing you can do is we can release the shoulder as well from the back. This can often work if you do it first, but we're doing it the other way around today because we normally do it the other way around. For some people, this can be effective to switch. So let's grab our lacrosse ball. We're going to put this to one side for a minute. We can do this on the floor or on the wall. If you've done it before on the floor, try it on the wall. If you've done it on the wall but not tried it on the floor, try it the other way around. Or if you know what works for you, feel free to do it the other way. So, ball against the wall. You're going to drop the ball just behind you. You're going to have it about the top of the shoulder this time. So the shoulder blade, that is, more towards the muscle that runs across the top of the shoulder, the trap. And you'll find a sweet spot. I say a sweet spot, it won't feel sweet, it'll feel really uncomfortable, but just towards the top of the shoulder, along the shoulder blade, and also it might even drive some tension into that neck and shoulder area. So a little bit of backwards pressure. I'm on my left hand side this time. So what I want to do is I want to find that spot that feels like it's quite tender and uncomfortable. Probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10 in this circumstance. I'm just putting a little bit of backwards pressure into the wall. I'm just kind of moving around, find that spot that really drives the discomfort. And then I'm just going to sink down just a little bit. So lean away, refine that position, bring our chin back, and we're just going to hang out. So normally we'd add a little bit of movement here, but if you find that you're particularly tender, like I am today, we're just going to try and avoid doing the movement until the muscle eases off. And this can take anywhere between a minute to 3 minutes. Sometimes it releases straight away. Mine's just given out a little bit and released, so I'm going to start to add some movement in. So I'm reaching up, seeing if that changes the position of that knot. I'm starting to reach down. I'm pulling my shoulder behind me and down, and I'm reaching straight up. Now if you're doing this on the floor, apply the same principles if you've done that before. Now coming down to the floor, and I'm reaching up, palm up to the ceiling this time, and I'm bringing my thumb down. I'm going to bring it across my body this time, and then up to the top corner. I'm coming down to the bottom corner, and I'm bringing it up. I'm coming down, and bringing it up. Let's change position, and if you want to try it on the floor, feel free to. Today I'm just going to do it against the wall, but the same principles apply. It's just knowing how to apply that downward pressure. It takes a little bit of play to find out what works for you. So the ball is going to go against the wall. I'm on my right hand side this time. Try to place it around the top of the shoulder blade and slightly more towards the spine, and find a spot which might feel tender or uncomfortable, or at least is limiting your range of motion. And once you find that spot, you'll know it because your body will give you feedback and tell you that it's not comfortable. And you are going to put a little bit of pressure back into the wall by bringing your hips forward and then leaning your body weight back. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to find that spot. So you might just play with it. It won't be the same necessarily on each side. And we're just going to hang out and apply pressure into the wall. Just see if that knot starts to release, if it starts to give out, which again can take anywhere between a minute to 3 minutes, and you just want to apply that pressure and making sure you breathe. And we're just going to kind of hang out in that position, just see if it starts to release, start to go now. So once it starts to release a little bit, we're going to find a new position, and then we're just going to add a little bit of movement to start. So we're coming down, thumb down to the floor, thumb comes all the way up, stretching down, keeping that chin tucked back to get as much stretch as we can and to also stabilize that neck. And we're reaching up and down. And we can also come across the bottom corner. So we come across this bottom left-hand corner with my right arm, and I can come up as well. And you can do as many passes as you need to. We're just doing a few today just to help loosen up this shoulder and help maximize those chest stretches. And now we're just going to loosen off a little bit. Now you can apply that same principle, that same movement to the whole shoulder, and it's worth checking in now just to kind of see how you feel. So we're going to put that one across all the way, and we're just going to do a check-in. So we've done a bit of neck work, which loosened up the front here. We've done a little bit of chest work by doing the foam roller on the floor. We've done a little bit of shoulder release with the lacrosse ball. So now if you do a little bit of a shoulder roll, which is what we did at the very, very start, just to see how the shoulders feel, how the T-spine to the back feels, and also how that neck feels. So just some rolls, the shoulders, rolls with the neck, each way, see how that feels. Now, I did mention that we're going to do a little bit of work on the forearm. You can do this on a chair if you want, or you can do this on the floor. I'm going to do it on the floor today, and this is going to also help feed into that tension across the chest as they kind of feed into the same fascial net. So, coming down to the ground, if you know this one, feel free to jump ahead if you need to. If you haven't done this one before, just go as far as you feel comfortable. So we're going to apply a little bit of downward pressure. Ideally, you want your shoulder over your wrist. Now, I'll start this way around today, actually, just so you can see the hand. But ultimately, you can do it the opposite way around. Will apply the best kind of stretch across the wrist. But if you were just starting out, start with your shoulder in line with your wrist. And if you need to take less pressure, you can bring that forward away from you slightly. And then start to ease it back once you know how much range you have. And if you have any pre-existing conditions, then obviously be mindful of that too. So shoulder is stacked over hand. We're going to start to rock forward slightly to add a little bit of light pressure, kind of dynamic pressure as we move forward without bending our elbow. We're just keeping it nice and straight. And we can also add a bit of a rotation at the wrist as we come back as well. So we can add some rotation as we come backwards and forwards. It's going to help loosen up the tissue. We can go all the way up the arm into the bicep. As we do that, it's just going to help to release some of that tension across the tissue. And then once you've got kind of a little bit more range, you feel like it's eased off, or even if you feel a little bit discomfort, actually, just to help those that have that already, you can do a little bit of a wrist roll. You can ease off the wrist just for a minute and do some rolls and then come back to it. But if you're like me and you're okay, you can then start to do our finger lifts, which also help as well to add a little bit of a release across any nerves and muscles which kind of fall into the rest. So again, I'm staying stacked over my hand. I'm just lifting those fingers up, applying a little bit of localized stretch in the hand. And this will also help to take some tension out of that forearm as well, which can often feed into the shoulder. So if you need to support the wrist or apply a little bit down pressure, you can. Rocking and coming back to that rocking position will help. And then you can also start to lift those fingers too. So take a break for a second. Let's do a little bit of wrist rotations. It can be a little bit intense on the wrist. I get some cracks there. If you have a watch, obviously feel free to take it off if you feel like it might limit your range. I think it should be fine with mine. But now we're coming on to the left hand. So again, just to remind you, this time you can have a hand forward. If you're comfortable with this position, you can have your hand back. If you need to ease off the tension, you can start with your hand in front of your shoulder and then kind of ease it back. until you're able to line your shoulder up over the floor, over the hand. And we're just going to start by rocking forward. Now you can put your hand on top of the other hand to stabilize, or you can just keep it where it is and use your hips to add a little bit of a stretch, a dynamic stretch. So what's number 2 on this one? We're going to start by lifting our fingers. So you can either start from thumb and work to the little finger, or you can start the other way around for the little finger and work round. And the idea here is, once we've got our start position, just lifting up slightly, and we're just adding a little bit of a stretch there without adding a strain. You just want a slight stretch. And then you want to see how that feels. And then you want to finish it off with a little bit of a roll, just to take some of that tension out of the wrists. See how that feels. And then we're just going to come back and we're just going to finish off. So I did skip over the slight wrist rotation, that twist of the forearm as you rock forward. You can also do that on this side, so don't forget to do that too. I did, so apologies. We're just adding a little bit of tension release across that arm, just twisting the musculature slightly. It doesn't need to be too aggressive, but it can be dynamic. It's just going to help take out some of that tension you might feel on the wrist if you were doing rotation movements, or even if you're doing pressing movements, you really feel a lot of tension there. And again, if you release the forearm into the bicep, it can often feed into that chest and shoulder because they all kind of sit within that same fascial net, that front arm net. So let's come to a little bit of a psoas stretch next that can help with that chest opener. So didn't cover it earlier, but I think it's a good time to come back to it because you have enough time, which is awesome. So we're going to take our foam roller. We're going to actually place it in a different spot than we have before. So normally we place it locally for the stretch, but this time we're going to place it further away. We're going to place it towards the psoas. So if you're not sure where to place it, we're actually going to lay our weight down across our hip on the foam roller. So we're going to bias one side. And with that, we're actually going to stretch the opposite side. So we're actually trying to get a little bit of a stretch here to help open up our chest on the other side. So again, laying on top of the foam roller here, helping open up our chest on this side. So laying slightly across the foam roller, let's say about a third of the way up the foam roller, with enough area so that our body weight can shift down, our belly buttons kind of in line with the floor. And we're going to lay up our arms out away from the foam roller. So what this is going to do is it's going to take some tension into that psoas area. And we're thinking about spiral line, we're thinking about this connection with the opposite side of the body. And we're going to start to turn our body using the hand that's closest to the foam roller, keeping that pressure down with the hip and lifting if we need to help keep that pressure into the foam roller. We're just turning slightly and lifting our head up, turning our head, keeping that pressure into the chest, and we're going to switch sides. So you can do this a few times if you need to. Again, the idea with this is that we're doing the diagonal line stretching away from the hip, where sometimes you get a little bit tied up with the chest. It's the area that a lot of people kind of skip over, they kind of forget to do, but it's very much connected. It's kind of, imagine that if you're pulling your shirt from this corner, you're going to feel a lot of tension transfer over to this shoulder where the shirt's starting to pull. It's the same thing with the tissue that kind of sits underneath. So again, lying on the opposite side. Actually, I'll do it this side so you can see. We're going to lay diagonally across the foam roller. We're laying on top of that psoas area just left of the belly button, and we're going to stabilize and just drop our hips down to the floor. And then we're going to use this left arm to stabilize and splay our right hand out. So the idea here again is to stretch the right hand, the right shoulder, right chest area as far away from us as we can, and turn our body by driving this hand down to the floor to get that chest stretch. Again, the idea is pinning the tissue on the opposite diagonal side will help us to facilitate a better stretch on that chest area. So we're turning away, should feel a nice deep stretch there. You can also find another area if you need to, another angle, and you can move the arm around to wherever you feel needs the stretch. So let's come up. You can do that 2 or 3 times, wherever you feel is necessary to help you with that stretch. And the last piece here is just to do a little bit of a check-in. So normally do a little bit of stability work with this. Feel free to go back to previous videos if you haven't really touched on it. We'll also touch on some stuff next week that will really help this, just to help to kind of lock in that range of motion that we've just gained. So just going to turn the comments on just before I sign off. And thank you so much for joining us on this Monday 11:30 session. Awesome to have you all join us. I will be back next week on Monday at 11:30. And if you have any feedback, any comments, anything you'd like to let us know, anything you'd like us to cover, feel free to leave it in the comments to the video that I'll post afterwards. Thanks so much for joining us. I will see you next week, Monday, 11:30. Ciao for now.